today I think it's day 5 of my little project, and well, it's kind of stop and start, so it's not really day 5, but it does take me a while to actually find time to work on this, but also making some sizable progress to tell on a camera about, I guess. So with my wobbly little connection that I've made, I'm talking about this dovetail joint. As you can see, the lines are very thick, but what I'm finding is when I'm sanding it down, actually there's some defect, I may need to glue a bit, but what I'm finding is that when I'm sanding it down, it actually becomes almost unnoticeable. And what I'm hoping to achieve after I've done the pre-stain conditioner followed by the stainer, once I'm happy with the color of the wood, I will, because I'm going for really dark color, I will put some glue onto the joint, making sure there is plenty in these lines between, and I will try and sand this area again so the dust particles can settle on the glue, and that should hopefully cover this little bit of ugliness. Yeah, so the idea here is that today I will try and sand down as much of the boards as possible, so that way I will be able to actually start thinking about staining them and drilling the holes for dowels, and basically starting construction. I'm sanding them with 180 grit to start with, then I'm moving upwards to 240 and then 320, and I've heard that should be enough. Okay, confession time. Sanding is difficult, and I found myself rather lazy. This reminded me of one of the tips that I've seen in numerous YouTube videos that I was trying to watch to get my head around the process and how to actually build what I'm trying to build. And one of the suggestions was to use a pencil, and I don't remember whether there were any like precautions as to why you would not want to use that and stuff like that, but yeah, what I figured that if you do it really carefully and just without like putting too much pressure on the surface with the tip of the pencil, you can leave like just a tiny little bit of a line from the pencil on the board, and then once you get to sanding, at least you're sure that you covered the entire surface. And I did that on this board just now. What I found that towards the end I usually like accept more slack with sanding, and because of the pencil I could actually see which areas I'm missing. So that was really wonderful tip if you ever into woodworking like I am, or just need to sand something, considering using pencil. I found it really handy. So I think it's day 6 of the little project, as I call it, and it takes a while to do the sanding, and I'm kind of continuing with that today. So originally the plan was that I'm gonna use this bit over here that I bought from like ages ago, and I use one of this well, a bunch of this sandpaper rounds. However, what didn't work was that instead of proper sander, I've actually used a drill, and I wouldn't say it's bad. It did work fine-ish, but yesterday I kind of got tired of like holding the drill because there is a lot of force that comes in the wrong directions, and you have to always counteract that, which is not great for working with the wood, I guess. So I just decided to use one of the sanding blocks, and that proved to be much more easier. I mean, it does require more effort, but the work goes quite fast, and because the wood I'm using is already planed and squared, and it's not very bad. I mean, I could probably leave it like this and it would do just fine. Well, I decided that to continue this sanding everything down to prepare for pre-stain, conditioner, stainer and varnishing, I will probably just use manual sanding by hand with the help of this sanding block. It did go quite well yesterday evening, so I basically finished polishing off one of the last pieces by hand, and it was quite nice. So now I will do just that basically. This is a solution I'm irrationally excited about, so I wanted to just kind of record a quick video. So I need to drill X many holes for dowels, and I want to avoid as many inaccuracies and mistakes as possible. My challenge is that I need to drill some holes and then eventually connect this wide piece of wood with this wide piece of wood, like that. So it has to be matching exactly on this side. However, additional challenge I have is that it needs to allow for another piece of wood that will go like this. And in order to achieve this, I came up with this plan over here. So for the thinner one or narrower one, I will just drill a hole using this guide over here, using this as a stopper for the first one, and then I'll just kind of continue like this. In the new hole, place this dowel so it matches exactly, and so on and so forth. So that's easy, or relatively easy. My main concern was, how do I allow for this extra space at the beginning when I'm cutting the wide one, or when I'm drilling the wide one rather. And the solution I've come up with was to basically drill this small bit, so I can use the same dowel to connect to. It only goes one way, so that also should minimize the possible mistakes that I can make. So here you go, and that allows for an additional space. So let's say we've got the board like this, and if I place it like that over here, then obviously it will be longer, so the hole will be drilled considering this extra space. And the reason why I wanted that space is because it's exactly matches two boards like this. One exactly next to the first dowel, which I'm using for the narrower board as a guide, and then the next one is exactly off the board that will be connecting on a 90 degrees angle to the wide board over here, meaning I'm taking into account that they will be built like this. Yay! Actually very excited about that. It's kind of re-qualifying my channel into unboxing videos. This is actually a set to sharpen chisels and planing iron. It actually, I've pre-opened that, so it's a fake unboxing. But it was a bit ripped apart, so I wanted to see if all the content is there, and it is. There is that skin belt, which I don't exactly know why one needs, but it's definitely useful. This one, the honing guide, is very important because it allows to maintain the angle when sharpening chisels, so that's great. What else is there? Not quite sure where this might come in handy, but this is like universal set, so it allows to sharpening knives and what have you. Hopefully that will come handy at some point in the future when I figure out what it is. Now, this is another guide, but this one is for the knives, I believe. This is the polishing paste that goes on top of the piece of skin, leather rather, and yeah, all on top of that, I believe, and it allows to do the final polish, which is really good, because I might need to do that for the chisels and stuff. So there are two whetstones that I'm going to use, and they are 400, 1000, and then 3000 and 8000 grit. I think the 400 one, at least according to the description, is for the very damaged tools, solving that problem. Ooh, another thing I forgot to put in the box is this, and this is actually stone that helps to keep these whetstones perfectly plain. That means when I'm sharpening chisels where it must be like absolutely plain without any defects, I can ensure that using this little stone here. Okay. Checking that it's very touching it. Yes, looks like that. I think we're getting somewhere. Hey Ivy, are you sharpening chisel? Can you teach me please, because I'm useless. Yeah. I've got the 25 degrees angle established. Let's move closer. Yeah, there you go. A bit of burr at the end, but I'm gonna remove it shortly. And already sharpened the back side as well. Okay, fast forward on to the second one I've sharpened, and as you can see there is secondary bevel, which is 30 degrees, so primary bevel 25 degrees. I have redone that on this tool, and then added 30 degrees bevel as well. It seems to work alright. Definitely an improvement on what I had before. So previously, to kind of achieve this smooth surface, I would have to use sandpaper. Now I think the outcome, what you see here, is pretty decent. It does take a very gentle cut now. I'm really pleased. Of course, a lot of it is still to kind of learn to use it properly. At least it's sharp, so I don't have to worry about that aspect anymore. So yesterday my partner has volunteered herself to drill some holes in these two pieces of wood so we can connect them. As you can see, the wood is slightly warped, but that's fine. I'm sure it will be okay once it's all connected. But currently it's got two dowels, one here and one at the end. In total there will be 8, so it will all be glued up and connected together really nicely. And there's one more like this to go, and one that will sit in between with 2 similar size pieces that will be connected just like that with the dowels and glue. Yay! Feels like we starting to make some progress, which is wonderful. Okay, so today is day 7. Okay, so today is day 8. One of those days of my little project to build a bed frame, and today I've started with marking some of the cut lines that I'm gonna need to make on the main sides of the bed frame to join them. So I'm going to use a relatively simple dowel joint. It will be just like one big dowel joint connecting 2 pieces together, and there will be a half lap as well, so I can connect them relatively robust. For now, because I'm planning a house move at some point, I'm not going to actually put them on glue, but I probably would need to do that later on. Let's see how the structure will hold, because it might not be strong enough just with like one screw or a couple of screws. I don't really know how I'm gonna connect them, other than relying on the half lap. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I'm definitely like firm on creating the dovetail joint, because that might actually look quite nice, depending on my skill, which is quite rubbish. But I've done one as a practice run. It doesn't look too bad, and I think I will be able to correct some of my mistakes later on when I do the staining and gluing the pieces together, so I can hide some of those holes that I've created. On the corner one, I will, well, I kind of got a little bit more experience in understanding, and I'm also doing this half lap with a little bit simpler shape, so that doesn't put too much pressure on my ability to sew the piece, and also to use the chisels. I also managed to sharpen the chisels yesterday, so there are a greater chance of me succeeding this time as opposed to what I did last time. So fingers crossed. Here's what I've got basically. So I already marked the area for the cut. This is my first trial run to make a joint, just like to extend the board a little bit. It does hold, it's quite robust. I mean, I still can take it apart because it's not glued up together and stuff, and as you can see there are many issues with it because, come on, I'm just useless. But what I'm hoping to achieve is that when I do the staining and we'll start gluing these two pieces together, I can put some glue in these sections and do a light sanding, so it will fill up the gaps with a nice same kind of color-ish of the dust, and it should be less noticeable. I mean, it will always be noticeable, but come on, it's not bad. Yeah, so the half lap, it will be in this dowel tail shape, and it will only be cut in half, so this section will go as well. But first I will cut out those two bits, and then I will make this cut later on, because the boards are quite long. It might prove a challenge to actually do this cut, but I'm thinking maybe cutting it like this. Obviously this one I can disconnect using that joint, it's not glued up as I said, but the other side will still be a problem, so I'll have to repeat the same process on the other side, and yeah, sewing this long piece might prove a challenge with my current equipment, but what I'm thinking, cutting it that way should be fine, I hope. And now the other part of that corner is also marked for cutting, and here is just basically the same shape but on the inside, and as you can see it's all marked up and ready to go. This time I've used pen to make the cut, or at least the markings for the cut very precise, and I'm hoping to improve upon my sewing skills compared to what I did last time. I did a few cuts here and there and they got increasingly better, but obviously by no means I'm a professional, so I will accept a margin of error, of course. Okay, so here's the first sew cut done, and I think it's got a bit better than previously. I've nearly ruined this at the beginning. Over here the line is barely visible, so I gotta be careful, but the rest of it still got the line. Got a couple, maybe 1 millimeter extra material left here, but that's fine. This one is pretty much close to the line, and if I flip to check the other side, let's do that. There is a little bit more material, but I guess the main point is that it hasn't gone off beyond those lines, so that's pretty decent for what I need it for, so that's great. And I'm gonna move on and do some work with the chisel and see how that will evolve, I guess. Before I start chiseling, I will do some additional precautions to make sure that the top grain is not ruined when the materials start to get removed. I'm trying to chisel out this piece of material exactly in the corner, but also without damaging the corner. Okay, that's not bad. Move everything around again. Okay, so with a little bit of chisel work and experimentation, I've managed to get pretty much exactly on the line as I draw them. This is wonderful. I mean, it is like the best bit I've done so far, and I'm hoping not to ruin it, because now the next step is to actually cut this piece over here. So I need to remove it, make sure the remainder is like nice and smooth and straight, and yeah, see what happens, I guess. I left a little bit of material, so this is like really nicely visible here, very smooth over here, a bit grainy, extra bit of material on top, so I left it here just because I didn't want it to remove too much, so that should hopefully be well, not necessarily fixable, because I don't think it's a problem. It will just give me a bit of extra stuff to play around with, maybe even with the sandpaper once I do the final piece. Exciting. Okay, and now it's day 8 of the project, and I have made some good progress yesterday creating the dovetail half lap joint for one of the corners in the bed frame, and the next bit of that corner will be cut today. I'm making really small steps now, because obviously it's kind of end of the year, all the festive stuff, so really spending not much time, or probably not as much time as I should have to get a faster progress. So that's why day 8 and day 7 is pretty much doing the same corner. But that's fine, I've got 4 more to go. Great. So today I will be doing the cutting of this board here, and then chiseling out the rest of the material, so it will be really nice. I need to make sure the angle is right so I can cut next to the line as close as possible, but not on the line, just so there is some safety. Okay. Yeah, I've tried to do everything to measurement, so the line should be maintained everywhere and stuff. I've been overly cautious on this side because this will be the visible side. I've been less cautious on this side, and I noticed that I actually gone off the line over here, unfortunately in 2 places on this joint. This will be the top part, so this will probably be the ugliest section of the joint, but luckily it will actually be inside a half lap, except for this facing one, which I'll have to look at forever. I mean, yes, I can still see the line, but no, this line is no longer in the material, it just kind of sticks out there on a piece of wood that was sewn off. Look at that, nearly perfect. So after some fiddling about, I've managed to connect it. I'm gonna put the screw over here, and that should hopefully hold it together. And if I try to move it like this, it doesn't move. So the dovetail joint does what it's supposed to do. I'm not like entirely pleased, but I think it's an improvement from my previous joint. There are holes in here, like, but they are quite consistent, and the beauty of that is when I actually like hold it together properly, you know, with one hand and stuff, I can almost get rid of these issues. They're almost invisible, so that's not bad at all.